Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Factor. The day is July the 28th. My name is Faraz Patel. I'll be in your company for the next 1 hour. We'll be touching base with regards to our local stories. We'll then go to our international updates. We then will be speaking to Africa Muslim Agency with regards to their new COVID-19 supplement pack. I do have it in my hand right over here. We'll then be touching base with Petri Redingling Hayes and then giving you some sports updates. But before that, let's go to our COVID-19 statistics for the country. And of course, the numbers seem to be decreasing now as we are just passing the third wave of COVID-19. 7,773 new COVID-19 cases were reported according to the NICD. The majority of the new cases were from Gauteng. Unfortunately, a further 370 COVID-19 related deaths have been reported, bringing the total of fatalities to 70,388. Well, it's that time. Let's take a look at some of our newspapers and the headlines that are making the big waves across our country. We start off with The Citizen. And let us take a look at their front page. Well, in the Citizen front page, it's saying, well, it has there a picture of Tatiana Schoonmaker, our silver lining. It says 2 water babies to light up a country drowning in COVID and riots. Surfer Bianca Buitendag, who we did speak to on the Daily Factor earlier on, hopes her silver medal will inspire young girls as she joins swimmer Tatiana Schoonmaker on the podium at the Tokyo Olympic Games. Let's go to the back page of The Citizen. Blitzbokke flops against the Pumas. This, of course, as the Blitzbokke were defeated against the Pumas at the Olympic Games. There's going to be a start for a youngster called Jasper Visa. He's been included in the Springbok squad to take on the British and Irish Lions this weekend at the Cape Town Stadium. This after coach Jacques Ninabe-Naby's 15 to take on the British and Irish Lions. Remember, the British and Irish Lions currently are 1-0 up in the series. Let's take a look at our next newspaper. It is The Star, and it says the CR knows about Sequale trillions. Well, there we go. Reinstatement of the 350 relief grant raises questions about where the money came from. A picture there of former Gauteng Premier Tokyo Sequale and our current President Cyril Ramaphosa. And then, of course, our girl Tatiana Schoonmaker, our very own South African, winning silver in the 100-meter breaststroke swimming event at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. Let's go to the Pretoria News. Mango owes 157 million rand in unpaid salaries. Representatives of 750 employees want South African Airways subsidiary placed under business rescue to save their jobs. A baby in abuse case suffers severe injuries. Baby T was only 2 months when she was first admitted to hospital with breathing problems. That is in the Pretoria News. Let's go to Cape Town. And it is the Cape Argus, another picture there of Tatiana Schoonmaker, and she really is making waves. And speaking about waves, Bianca Buitendag on her way to a silver medal, and the front page, of course, of the Cape Argus. Team SA bags their first medals of the Olympics. To my other stories there, Prasa's evictions attempt stalls, and province celebrates 1 million vaccinations. That is, of course, the province of the Western Cape. Well, staying in the province of the Western Cape, we go to the next newspaper, and that is the Cape Times. And the SA lawyers sue Tanzanian state. And just above, there's some good news there. Bianca Buitendag and Tatiana Schoonmaker, they're showing off their medals at the Rio Olympics. A taxi extortionists targeting motorists carrying passengers, and cyber attack, a red flag for South African firms. Let's go to KwaZulu-Natal. And the Daily News, police operations under the spotlight. Portfolio Committee on Police to call on Minister of Police, State Security and Defence to account for their failures during the unrest. Newcastle Mayor charged for theft, assault and property damage. And Mayor accused of using a EPWP contract for political reasons. The expanded public works program contract has been extended for another year. And we wrap up with the Mercury. And cyber hit a red flags to SA firms. Transnet getting ready to lift major force majeure. A lesson learned from Transnet breach. And a picture there of Bianca Patendag after taking silver in the surfing event. Well, that's all our newspapers for today. Let's go to our first story. And EFF leader Julius Malema has criticized President Cyril Ramaphosa and his government for deploying soldiers to the streets to resolve the civilian unrest that gripped the country. He accused Ramaphosa of threatening civilians with soldiers. Malema terrorism by all means that government has no legitimacy amongst its people. Let's take a look to Mr. Malema.
Or terrorism by all means of measure and standards, let alone a coup d'etat. There is absolutely no one who has yet threatened to remove the sitting government through violence, and all intelligence services, crime intelligence, SSA, and military intelligence have publicly admitted that there is no threat of insurrection yet. We want to challenge Ramaphosa to remove the soldiers from the streets and confront the people of South Africa. He must stop hiding behind the uniform of the soldiers and confront the reality that our people are confronted with on a daily basis. If you are a man, Ramaphosa, and you know you have been elected legitimately by the people of South Africa who love you, and that you did not buy the presidency through the money of the white monopoly capital, then go and speak to the masses on the ground. You cannot threaten them with the soldiers. You have admitted unwittingly that you are an illegitimate leader when you deployed soldiers on civilian matters. The brave leader will be amongst his people, because a leader is a swarsak. If you are not scared of your people, go and stand amongst them. Let them insult you. Let them tell you all the problems they have. And you must commit to solve those problems. I can guarantee you, once you have listened to the masses of our people and you leave, anyone who wants to agitate them against this government and against yourself, the people themselves will say, the president was here, the ministers were here, they listened to us. Let's give them a chance and see if they will not implement what we've told them.
Now, the economic freedom fighters said that restaurants and hospitality employees must also receive relief packages, to soften the blow from COVID-19. Now, speaking at the party's 8th birthday address, leader Julius Malema said that the two industries needed all the help they could get to survive beyond the pandemic.
Has equally been victim of the incompetent government and failure to protect industries. This is a sector where majority of our people provide services in hotels, restaurants, and recreational spaces. The consistent bans on gatherings and in some instances travel has meant that it is impossible for these institutions to remain afloat. Black business who need to meet rental demands in order to maintain a presence in malls and city centers have had to close down because they are not making enough money. Our tourism sector is on the verge of collapse, while we witness the rest of the vaccinated world carry on with their lives in football stadiums. Workers in hotels are being paid half salaries because these institutions are simply not getting occupied as a result of lockdown regulations. We call for a relief package for restaurants and the hospitality industry, particularly those that are black-owned. The jobs in this sector must be protected, and restaurant owners must be given the leeway to continue occupying buildings even when they struggle to meet rental payments. The clause that prevents eviction during this period must apply to businesses, and no one must close down because they can no longer afford to pay rent. We are in a war against deadly virus. The creative and hospitality industry need our protection if they are to exist after COVID-19. Our protection of this industry depends on massive vaccination rollout program so that these institutions can function at full capacity. We want this government to really pay a relief to all restaurants, to all hotels, to all those who depend on events for survival.
Now, all South Africans age 18 and older will be able to receive their COVID-19 vaccinations from September the 1st. This is according to President Cyril Ramaphosa. Speaking during his address to the nation, in which he moved South Africa to lockdown alert level 3 and also announced a range of measures to assist an ailing country and population, the president said that this was possible due to the rapidly increasing number of people being vaccinated daily and also indications that the country has ample doses of the vaccine.
As we have always said, our most effective weapon in the fight against COVID-19 is an effective and comprehensive vaccination program. In the last few weeks, our vaccination campaign has made huge strides. There's been great progress. We are now administering more than 240,000 vaccines every weekday. A month ago, this figure stood at around 100,000 vaccines per weekday. I've still said to the Minister of Health that I still want those vaccinations to reach 300,000 per weekday. And as a result, we've now administered more than 6.3 million vaccines, with over 10% of our population having received a vaccine dose. This has been possible through close collaboration between government and the private sector and with other social partners. In the coming weeks, we will substantially increase the rate of vaccination. We're increasing the number of vaccination sites and improving the vaccination registration system. We will also increase our vaccination capacity on weekends. We will now allow people between ages 18 and 34 to be vaccinated from the 1st of September 2021. This will be in addition to age groups that are currently eligible, which is everyone over 35 years of age. We are now able to allow people who need to be vaccinated to present themselves at vaccination sites without an appointment and be registered and vaccinated.
Coming up after the break, we'll be taking a look at our international stories. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to the Daily Factor. Let's go to our international news, and we start off in Africa. And Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara and bitter rival Laurent Gbagbo have embraced in their first meeting since the civil war 10 years ago. The conflict was sparked by Mr. Gbagbo's refusal to admit defeat in an election, and 3,000 people were killed. Gbagbo returned to the Ivory Coast last month after the International Criminal Court acquitted him over charges of crimes against humanity. Both men have been pushing for peace and reconciliation. Mr. Ouattara welcomed Mr. Gbagbo into the presidential palace in the capital, Abidjan. Mr. Gbagbo was captured at the presidential palace in April 2011 and transferred to the ACC at The Hague. After his acquittal, he lived in the Belgian capital, Brussels, before being invited to return to the Ivory Coast by Ouattara. Now, the Malaysian government has been asked why it revoked emergency COVID-19 regulations as cases continues to spike. Malaysia has reported more than 1 million cases and 8,000 deaths so far, but experts warn the real numbers are much higher as testing rates are becoming lower. The hospitals are crowded and overwhelmed, and recent images showing patients sitting on chairs and sharing oxygen cylinders. The country is also currently under a state of emergency, which will end on August the 1st and will not be extended. Opposition leaders say they were not informed about the annulment, which happened last week, and demanded to know what the impact on the wider public would be. Now, Sydney's lockdown has been extended by another month as COVID cases continues to rise. Australia's largest city has been under stay-at-home orders since late June due to an outbreak of the Delta variant. More than 2,500 people have been infected in Sydney's worst outbreak this year. New South Wales, of which Sydney is the capital, reported 177 new cases today, the most in a day since March 2020. Now, Premier of Sydney, Gladys Berejiklian, said it was not possible for the city to extend the lockdown on Friday as had been planned. She announced further curbs on movements, including a 10-kilometer limit on essential shopping. Now, an area of the Greek capital, Athens, has been hit by a forest fire with temperatures set to reach 40 degrees Celsius in the next few days. The fire ripped through a pine forest, destroying homes before firefighters brought it under control yesterday. Forest fires are a common occurrence in Greece summers, but these are concerns that have also seen blazes, which have been reported in Italy and Spain. Now, climate changes continue to become much worse in Greece. People in the Samanta area, 30 kilometers north of Athens, were evacuated. Others were warned to keep doors and windows closed. Smoke from the fire was spotted over Athens, limiting visibility in some parts of the capital. Israeli forces and Palestinian militant groups carried out attacks during May's Gaza conflicts that apparently amount to war crimes. This is according to Human Rights Watch. An investigation by the campaign group in what it says were 3 Israeli strikes that killed 62 civilians found no evidence of military targets nearby. The Israeli military said it only struck military targets in Gaza. The report only says that 4,300 rocket militants fired at Israeli constituted indiscriminate attack on civilians. At least 260 people were killed in Gaza and 13 people were killed in Israel during the 11 days of fighting. The UN said at least 129 of those killed in Gaza were civilians. The Israeli military said 200 were militants, while the militant group Hamas, which controls Gaza, acknowledged the death of 80 fighters. Well, coming up after the break, it will be our community news, and I'll be speaking to Africa Muslim Agency on this right over here. It is the COVID-19 supplement pack. Do stay tuned. Welcome back to the Daily Fact. Well, of course, COVID-19 has wreaked havoc during this third wave, but an organization that is well known right here on ITV Networks, Africa Muslim Agency, is playing their part to go ahead and sort of mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Let me show you what it is. It is a COVID-19 supplement pack. I'm going to read to you what's here. We've got vitamin B, we've got ascorbic acid, that's vitamin C. Vitamin D, we've got a 3-in-1 that's zinc, selenium, vitamin C, and kulunji seeds. And also, they've thrown in a nice hand sanitizer. Joining me from the agency is Mohammed Amir, just to explain to us this pack in itself, and of course, you know, how you can go ahead and get one yourself. Mohammed, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and jazakallah so much for joining us.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Faraz. Thank you for having us, and it's a pleasure to be on your show.
No, it's an absolute pleasure to have you. Just explain to us the pack, how it came about, and of course, the importance of having each of these specific minerals, including the Kulunji seeds, which is a favorite of mine also, and the hand sanitizer.
Yeah, so basically for us, the idea came about when COVID hit, and there was obviously a lot of doctors that were dispensing off these vitamin tablets, and there was a shortage of tablets at a certain stage in. What we as an organization decided to do is put together a pack and distribute this to doctors and ambulance services and so on. The reason that we did that is obviously we would want it to be dispensed from a medical professional. And a lot of doctors came to us asking us, can we put this together? Because they obviously had shortages in their space, and they knew the situation of those patients. Hence, we're putting this together and sending it out to these doctors and to the medical staff. The response has been great. We've been getting a lot of feedback. More doctors have been engaging with us. We haven't been distributing this directly to the public. We've been going through medical professionals because at any stage we'd like to obviously understand what is the condition of the people at that stage, and the doctor would then advise and provide that back to the recipient.
A lot of people ask why these minerals over here, and I think the importance of is that your vitamins D, C, and B, I mean, these are huge factors in playing a role in not just saying eliminating COVID-19, but playing a part in just combating it.
No, 100%. So what we've done is we've obviously haven't chosen these vitamins out of our heads. We've consulted with doctors. We've had a panel of doctors that have sat down together and told us what's ideally needed by people around, and what's for post-COVID that kind of would help them going into the right way. So obviously we need to know that we did the right research, and we had the advice from doctors and putting these packs together, consulting with them and distributing it through our networks around the country. So we've been sent these packs to identified doctors in Gauteng, Cape Town, PE, in Durban, as well as outgoing towns like Polokwane and Newcastle as well.
Mohammed, the public, if they want to go ahead and purchase or get one of this, I know that obviously being a NGO that you make this available to the public. So if there's somebody who cannot afford the minerals and the Kulunji seeds and your basic sanitizers, how can they contact African Muslim Agency to acquire one?
So I think the best way to do it is to obviously contact us via our website or telephone numbers that's on the website. And what we will do is then direct them to the nearest doctor in that particular area that we have provided to. So if there's a doctor, for example, in the Lenasia area that we've distributed, we'll kind of direct these recipients to that space, inshallah. If there is a medical professional that is not in the network, we would obviously then consult with those doctors and provide them those packs so that recipients can get from there, inshallah.
Mohammed, just the importance, of course, we've been seeing the Muslim community playing such a huge role, especially the NGOs. Just give us an idea of, being on the ground, just seeing the impact of COVID-19 from your experience, and how something like this can really help the community at large to, play their part in saying, look, it's not going to eliminate COVID-19. There is no real cure to it, but here is something that can really help us in the long run.
The problem that we've had in COVID has always become a shortage of things, whether it's food, whether it's people that have lost their jobs, whether it's been the looting for that matter. And I know that's not related to COVID, but the scenario that's happening in our country right now requires help from people that are able to give that help in order to make difference in the lives of South Africans. So we've got various campaigns that run around, not specifically only to the COVID packs, but talking around Empower SA. And Empower SA covers a large, vast majority of things, and patients that are affected by COVID, it's not only COVID patients, but it's all normal individuals as well. They don't have food in their houses and so on. So I know the COVID pack helps with a little bit of relief where it's needed. Obviously, all is in the hands of the Almighty, and we make dua and Allah grant shifa to all of those that are sick and all of those that have passed away. Allah grant all those marhooms Jannatul Firdaus. And by supporting initiatives like this is the only little that we can do in order to try and make a difference. So support the African Muslim Agency.
One final question, Mohammed. We know whenever I speak to anyone from the community, just your advice to people. I know we're in lockdown level 3. I know restrictions have sort of eased, and the President Cyril Ramaphosa has said that we have passed the third wave of the peak. But just your advice to the community at large, even though we are battling the pandemic and even though the vaccine rollout, hasn't been completed as yet, just your advice to our community.
I think the most important thing is for us to play our part in the sense of sticking to those COVID protocols. Wearing the mask, sanitizing. Washing your hands after you've engaged in any of the places. Trying to limit your activity by moving out, and try and limit that to that sort of activity. But at the same time, the one thing that I want to say from a humanity organization is that let's kind of also revisit where we're at. Let's open our hearts. Let's help others. If it's a friendly gesture during the course of the day, let's do that. Let's unite. Let's create that Ubuntu. That's important. Help people in need. If you know someone is struggling, contact an agency on their behalf and say, we need help for this. What do you guys can you offer? Can you give me a food hamper? Can you give me assistance where needed? But from our own, let's all become humanitarians as well. Let us help our fellow South Africans, and that's the important message that we need to get out there.
Mohammed Hamid from Africa Muslim Agency, Jazakallah so much. Well, there you go. This COVID-19 supplement pack. Contact Africa Muslim Agency and they'll be able to give you details with regards to it. We say Jazakallah to you, Mohammed, and keep up the good work.
Jazakallah Fawaz.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That is Mohammed Hamid from Africa Muslim Agency, just giving us a rundown of the COVID-19 supplement pack that the organization is currently making available to the public. Well, let's go to our COVID-19 statistics from the Muslim community. And unfortunately, 36 new deaths were reported, but it's not Gauteng that has accounted for most of it. It is the Western Cape. They're currently sitting on 24 deaths, Gauteng with 7 of them. May Allah grant all the marhumin Jannatul Firdaus, inshallah, Ameen. Well, coming up after the break, we will have Petri Redingling-Hayes for our market updates. To stay tuned. Well, it's time for your market updates. And for that, we bring in Petri Redingling-Hayes, Portfolio Manager of Harenia Capital Advisors. Petri, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. And I think today marks a bit of a reversal in fortunes. We've had a really, really, really rough start to the week, particularly for the industrial sector, if you will, on the back of Naspers being under, both Naspers and Prosus really being under a tremendous amount of pressure. As I think most people know by now, Chinese authorities, regulators, government, whatever you want to call it, has been cracking down on tech companies, education stocks, and all that kind of stuff. Today, we see some relief coming in. I mean, we've had two really, really bad days for the tech stocks, well, for Naspers and Prosus on our side, Chinese tech in general, on a global level. But we see some backtracking from Chinese authorities today. Some of the commentary made, and we're going to try and sort of get this as accurately as possible, is that they've basically sort of said that, like, that they were targeting specifically education stocks and not tech stocks in general. And there seems to be some intervention as well in sort of the open market, where state-run media publications and all sorts of stuff in China have been writing and publishing articles about how, the rout is overdone. And we also start seeing, sometimes government and government-backed banks start becoming forced buyers in their market and whatever the case. So it seems as though the market reaction to what had happened is causing Chinese authorities to backtrack a little bit. And that, of course, plays out really well for some of the local stocks, well, for Naspers and Process for those tech companies. So we see Naspers currently up around 6.9%, which is a lot. So not quite as all the way back to where it was on Friday, but at least we made up yesterday's losses so far. So we shall see. I think if this is a true sort of backtracking of Chinese authorities, this isn't the first time they do this type of stuff, right? Whenever the market falls really, really hard, they'll do, silly things like ban short selling and, prime brokers and banks are become forced buyers that you have to buy a certain amount of shares every day, that kind of stuff to prevent the market from really melting down. So it seems as though that type of intervention is happening again. And it's leading to fortune favors the brave. Those who were brave enough to buy the lows on Naspers are being rewarded very, very handsomely for that at this stage. So at least a relatively positive day. Top 40 index up 1.4% at this stage. Industrial 25 index 2.1% higher. Resource 20 index lagging behind a bit, but still up over 0.5%. As mentioned, the Industrial 25 index 2.1, it's now 2.25% up. Financial 15 index up around 0.9%. The precious metals mining index up 1.2%. And then looking at the retailers index also performing solidly 1.6% up. So a bit of relief coming into our market. We also see the Rand not really moving over the next, or hasn't really moved over the last couple of sessions. So we'll see what the rest of the week holds. Just quickly looking at international markets. In the UK, the FTSE 100 index is up 0.3%. Germany up 0.25% on the DAX index. French market up just shy of 1% on the CAC 40 index. In the US markets are open. The S&P 500 currently down 0.1%, as is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The NASDAQ, the US Tech Index, has bounced 0.2% after it had a really, really bad day yesterday. Obviously, some of this China tech fear spilling over into the US and making people think twice about the valuations that some of these tech companies are trading at. So we had a really bad day for the NASDAQ yesterday. That seems to be at least stabilizing. I wouldn't say bouncing and recovering all the way, but at least it's positive on the day. One of the only ones that is. The Russell 2000 on that side also, which is the smaller cap index, is also up just over 0.5%. So market really feeling a lot better than it did Monday, Tuesday. In the commodity space, gold price is slightly lower, 0.3% down, trading below 1,800, currently $1,794.40 a fine ounce. So that kind of does show that confidence coming back, people kind of letting go of the hedge and, safety assets are going back into equities. Platinum price, not down all that much, 0.1%, trading at $1,048.80 a fine ounce. Energy prices, Brent crude oil up around 0.5% at $73.85 a barrel in London. Similarly, up 0.5% in the US, trading in Chicago at $72.02. Of course, in Chicago, the West Texas Intermediate crude oil is traded. Then on the currency front, as mentioned, the Rand, a bit of a wishy-washy day. Currently, it is almost 0.5% weaker versus the dollar, trading at 14 Rand 84 to the dollar, which is kind of the range in which it's been most of the week thus far already. So I guess not too much of a change. 0.25% weaker versus the euro at 17 Rand 50, 1/3% weaker versus the pound at 20 Rand 56 cents. And then for those who are into the cryptos, Bitcoin did trade $40,900 a little earlier. It's currently trading $39,731 a coin. So that's up a solid 3.9% for the day.
Just one question for the average Joe on the street who doesn't, of course, have the financial wisdom that you have. If you are the board of directors right now at Naspers and you're seeing what's going on with government and Chinese tech companies, are you smiling your way to the bank right now, or do you sit with yourself with a bit of concern?
I don't know. I think I like to think that the guys at Naspers has obviously got a fair handle on the regulatory risks that they're exposed to, because essentially what it happens, Naspers process structure is very complicated, but it doesn't actually own the shares in Tencent. It owns a right to share in the earnings of Tencent.
All right.
Right?
Thanks. Yeah.
So
okay, I'm getting there. Yeah.
that gets a little more tricky because, you know, it is a communist party that's running China. What happens if they just turn around and say, well, this contract no longer valid, right? So that's obviously a huge risk. But I don't think that we would have seen what has been a tremendously successful investment from Naspers and Process over the last decade. You know, I don't think that this can just very easily be unwinded. I think that there's, you know, huge amounts of legal consequences, and those contracts are pretty tight, and do have a lot of security in them, even though it's not a direct ownership of the company itself, because foreigners may not own mainland China companies, but it is a right to share in the earnings, right? And there are all sorts of you know, binding conditions in there. So it is generally pretty safe, if I can put it that way, but it doesn't stop the Chinese Communist Party from saying, well, you're not allowed to do this kind of business anymore. So for example, they took WeChat off the app stores in China. WeChat is arguably one of the biggest messaging apps on earth because it has so many users in China, right? And they just said, no new downloads, no new users. So, I mean, that kind of stuff is pretty scary, right? I do like to think that the guys at Naspers, obviously, and/or Process, you know, have a firm handle on the regulatory environment there. I think if anybody knows it better than us, right, it would be them. Whether or not I think they're worried or smiling, I don't know. I think for them, they're kind of going, this again, you know? So we'll see how it turns out, right? I think for our local from our local perspective, we should be more interested in the way that they want to do the share shop transaction to unlock value, right? Because Naspers Process Group or whatever is deeply undervalued compared to what the value of Tencent is, right? So that process of unlocking value is something that we need to pay a bit of more attention to. I think that's where we should really be focusing our attention, because there are tax consequences for people who you know, participate or don't participate. So understanding that, I think, is maybe a bit more important at this stage. But I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. China, is it the canary in the coal mine? Is it the beginning of? I mean, it created a bit of a shockwave around the world. This evening, we have the Federal Open Market Committee, the FOMC, releasing their minutes. So we'll get some guidance on what's happening with interest rates in the US. So we'll see if that is a bit more hawkish. I think if we get sort of hawkish guidance from FOMC, plus this tech situation in China is not really going away, I think we're in for a bumpy second half of the week, right? And by bumpy, I mean red, very red. But we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of stuff still to happen. I think tonight's news is probably going to be, you know, bigger than what's been happening in China over the last couple of days.
Yeah, we will definitely be discussing the FOMC. But Redingling Hayes from Arena Capital Advisors, we say thank you so much for joining us, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, you have a great day also. That's Petri Redingling Hayes just giving us an update on the markets, and of course giving us of just how Naspers and its controlling shares of Tencent are. Well, coming up after the break, it is your sports news. Do stay tuned. It's time now for your sports update, and we start off at the Tokyo Olympic Games, and Chad Leclos finished 5th in the men's Tokyo Olympics 200-meter butterfly final at the Tokyo Aquatic Center. Swimming in lane 3, Leclos got off to a fast start as he was the first swimmer to turn at the halfway point at the 100-meter mark, but Hungarian's powerful Christoph Milak powered to take goal in 1 minute 51.25 seconds. Leclos touched the wall 3.68 seconds later as the South African finished a disappointing 5th in 1 minute 54.93 seconds. Japan's Tomura Honda took silver in 1 minute 53.73, and Italian Federico Bodiso rounded up the podium with a bronze medal. Let's go to rugby news. And Springbok prop Stephen Kershoff will earn his 50th Test cap at the Cape Town Stadium this weekend in the second Test of the Lions series, with Jasper Wiese named at number 8 ahead of Kwagga Smith, who drops to the bench. Springbok coach Jacques Nienaber made 3 changes to his starting team and 6 to the total to the match day squad for the key encounter. 2 of these changes are in front row, where Kershoff, who made his Test debut against Ireland in 2016, will mark his career milestone next to Frans Malherbe and Bongi Mbonambi in a new look combination for the hosts. Loose head Oxenchair, who packed down with tight head Trevor Nyakane and Mbonambi last weekend, was rolled out due to a neck niggle he picked up in the first Test. But fortunately for Nienaber, Mbonambi's hamstring strain has recovered sufficiently for him to start the match. Football news: Manchester United have agreed a deal with Real Madrid to sign a French centre-back, Raphael Varane. It is not expected, however, that Varane will be able to undergo a medical until next week because of the current UK coronavirus restrictions. No fee has been disclosed, but British media reported the deal at £34 million, rising to £48 million with add-ons. The 28-year-old Varane, a 2018 World Cup winner, has 1 season left on his contract at the Santiago Bernabeu. He moved from French club Lens to Madrid in 2011 and has since made 360 appearances across all competitions for Madrid, winning 18 major honors, including 4 Champions League titles. That's all we have for you right here on the Daily Factor. We'd like to thank our teams, Kabir, Linda, Amr, Derek, and Uncle Tony. And we will see you again, same time, same place on the Daily Factor. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.